Arizona State Defense Force Foundation to get all the information out about these laws. Now he's got what he has here, folks, is you go to that website, the azsdf.org. You go there, you get the names and the email addresses of your state and your legislators, their phone numbers. Start calling. Start calling. This is the one thing. This is exactly what I tried to accomplish after what happened to Waco, Jack, with the militias. It's the same thing, isn't it?
The difference is that what we are proposing is not only authorized under federal law, it is not only authorized under state law, it is supported by a majority of our state legislators. Once this gets through, and if it's signed by the governor, if your listeners gear up and start making these phone calls, if this goes through, there is absolutely nothing that the federals can do to stop it. Not even a lawsuit has a snowball's chance in a hot Miami day to get this stopped. There is precedent, both historical and constitutional, and there is a strong desire among our state legislators to see this done. We have a supermajority of conservatives, thanks to the Tea Party takeover from 2010. We have a supermajority of conservatives in the state legislature, enough, I am told, to possibly override the governor's veto should it come to that. Now think about this. One of the chief supporters of this bill, SB 1083, is Senator Frank Antinori. Senator Frank Antinori was at one time Master Sergeant Frank Antinori of the United States Army Special Forces. He's a decorated combat veteran and has written a book about his experience at the Battle of Debeka Pass in Iraq in 2003. This is the story of his Special Forces unit, how they trained, how they prepared, how they geared themselves and girded themselves to go to war before they ever knew where they were going to be sent, before they ever knew who the enemy was going to be. They trained hard and they made themselves into an undefeatable unit. Now, this is all documented and it's all chronicled in Senator Antinori's book, Roughneck 9-1. I have read his book. I encourage all of you to do the same after, of course, you purchase Mystery of Babylon. But this is an insight into one of the chief supporters, one of the state elected representatives, one of our legislators. This is where he's coming from. And if you want to see just how much support there is for this in our legislature, you can go to the website. You can go to the link to the video of the last, or 2 weeks ago, the meeting of the State Senate's Committee on Border Security, of which Senator Antinori is just one of the members. And for 6 minutes, you can watch him explain in excruciatingly accurate detail just exactly why this will work for Arizona and how it will work for Arizona. And he is speaking from the perspective of a Special Forces NCO, not just from the perspective of a state legislator. He said, this is what we do, people. Doesn't matter if the soldier you recruit retired from the Army 20 years ago. He knows what he is doing. He's been trained to do it. We can get this done. We can ramp up a unit in a matter of weeks. And he actually talked about how his unit went to a foreign country and created combat-ready units within 2 to 3 weeks because they had the support of the host country and because they had highly trained special operators who went there and got it done. That's what Special Operations does. That's what the Special Forces was designed to do, was to go in and build up a military unit very rapidly in a host country.
That's exactly, as a matter of fact,
if they can do that in a country where we don't even speak the same language, how hard is it for retired Special Forces operators to come to Arizona and do the same thing here now with people who have the same culture and language?
That was exactly the point. One of the observers who was in the military in my film True Face of FEMA, he said to bring her off, you know, hey, I'm in Special Forces, man. We were trained to do this. We were trained to do that. We could do this. We could go to county and you know, and do this.
I have talked to our state senators and our state representatives. A small number of them not only support this bill, but want to sign up as soldiers in the State Defense Force once it becomes a reality. I'm not going to throw out any names right now, but I have met them and I have talked to them. You talk about guys like, I'm not saying that I heard this from Senator Melvin, but I have talked to Senator Melvin, and he is a retired U.S. Navy captain in 06, and he knows people that would be willing to sign up and become soldiers, people who are retired professionals from every branch of the service who chose to live in Arizona after they retired because we have so much sunshine and because we have such a wonderful place to live, a beautiful culture, a fantastic environment. I love my state. I can't think of any place else I would want to live than right here. And this is worth defending. And this State Guard will have no problems getting volunteers. The biggest problem the State Guard would have is not funding. The biggest problem is knowing what to do with all the volunteers, because there's going to be more people that try to volunteer than there will be slots to put them.
All right, let's take a call here, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
928, your area code. You're on with Jack Foote and Clay Douglas. Who do we have here? Hello, 928. Are you there?
That might be me, Clay.
No, did you call in? Son of a gun.
No, you called me actually, but I
no, not the same one then. All right, let's try this one here. How about 919 area code? You're on with Jack Foote and Clay Douglas. Did you have a question or a comment to make?
No, I just got in. I just logged in, Clay. Good morning.
Good morning, Doc.
Morning.
All right. Well, Jack Foote is my guest today, and we're talking about telling people they can call the legislators in Arizona. We're trying to get a bill here for the State Guard. So I'll put you back on hold here, Doc, and let you listen.
Thank you.
All right, while we're waiting.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you have another caller?
No, I don't have another caller. I don't know who that other one was.
While we're waiting for the next caller, I'd like to point out that state defense forces, or state guards, depending on which state you're talking about, while they're all authorized by the federal government doesn't provide guidelines as to how they're going to be used or what their mission should be. So you've got a good selection and a good history of examples of what state guards can do in a lot of the different states. If you look at Alaska, for example, they were given a mission to secure and protect the Alaska pipeline. They are armed and sanctioned by the state. Now in Alaska, those State Guard soldiers also go through the same academy as their state police. So every member of the Alaska State Guard is a credentialed law enforcement officer in the state of Alaska. If you look at what they're doing in South Carolina has, like every state has, emergency communications. If the major communications go down for any reason, the state has its own internal communication system, mobile vans, emergency operations centers, trained operators. But in the state of South Carolina, they gave that entire mission to their State Guard. They have full-time soldiers that are members of the State Guard and who are running the state's emergency communication system. They maintain it, they plan the maintenance, they plan the utilization, they create all of the communications plans. All of that in South Carolina is done by State Guard soldiers. If you look at New Mexico, they have an extensive training program for their State Guard soldiers to be first responders. They are medics, they are radio operators, they are vehicle operators. We have everything from neurosurgeons down in medical units in the New Mexico State Guard. If you look at California, the California Military Auxiliary is their state defense force. They are the ones that built the first few miles of the border fence in San Diego. I bet your listeners didn't know about that because major news media doesn't want you to know about that. State Guard soldiers are the ones that started the construction on the fence in Southern California, the double fence, the one that we need here in Arizona. Now, people talk about funding. They say, well, if you don't want to get funds from the feds, you're never going to get enough money. Well, keep in mind, we don't have to pay the soldiers, and 60% of the cost of the National Guard is pay-related. It's not the equipment. It's not the big guns. It's not the fancy helicopters. It's the pay. 60% of the budget goes to medical or financial or something else that involves paying that soldier to show up. You don't have to pay State Guard soldiers. There is a provision in the current legislation to pay each soldier $100 per day for a grand total of 5 days a year so that he can go to annual training. But other than that, all of the time he spends going to regular monthly drills is unpaid time, just like every other State Guard in the country. You don't have to pay our soldiers. You don't have to pay me. I will make a promise to you right now, Clay. If they offer to pay me, I will return the money, and I will go and do this on my own dime. And I won't be the only one that does that. You don't have to pay me to stand up and protect my state, to defend my country. I will do it for no pay, and I won't be the only one that makes that offer. Here's the deal, folks. We saw last year one county sheriff in Arizona raised several $million for his department just using private donations. They turned him down for the money he had asked for from the state and the federals. He needed to be able to properly equip his deputies. This is Sheriff Paul Babu of Pinal County. This is the sheriff whose deputy was shot, was machine gunned by 5 criminal aliens with illegal fully automatic weapons yards away from the major interstate, I-8. I have walked the ground where this man was ambushed. I have seen what he saw. His department didn't have the funds to properly outfit all of their deputies. So Sheriff Babu went to the people, went to the private donors, went to the foundations, and said, I'm putting together a private nonprofit. I am raising money to properly equip my deputies. And he did it. 130 automatic rifles for his department, plus some night vision gear. If Sheriff Babu has done anything right, he has done one thing right, and that is show us the way. The State Guard, in SB 1083, the State Guard have the authority and have the legal allowance to accept private donations, like the ones that we saw being accepted by Sheriff Babu's Sheriff's Department. If he can raise several $1 million in less than a year for one small county sheriff's office, how much money can we raise with everybody in our nation contributing to the defense of this state? Yes, there is $1.4 million allocated per year in SB 83 towards the State Guard. But ladies and gentlemen, with your help, we're going to double or triple that in donations that come in from private citizens and private foundations and corporations. And it's not just the money. We can accept donations right now through our foundation of equipment, of supplies, of anything that you can think of. You want to clear out that old equipment room. I don't care how old the equipment is. If you've got cotton H suspenders from the Korea era, we can put those to use. If you want to donate equipment right now, our foundation is set up to do that. We don't want your money. We want you to donate what we're going to actually use in the field. We want to be able to put that equipment into the hands of our future State Guard soldiers now, so they're ready when the time comes. They sign on the dotted line. They're ready to report for duty. They don't have to go out and buy all that stuff on their own. If I'm going to buy my own uniforms, or I'm going to get them donated, that's money that I don't have to take from the state's budget, and that's money that gets to go to the things that we really need, like the equipment, the helicopters, the ground vehicles, the fuel, the ammunition, the training facilities. That's where that money should go. I don't want you to pay me so I can buy a uniform. I'll pay my own way. I'll buy my own uniform. But I want to be able to say to the soldier who doesn't have the money to do that, hey, these good folks over in Arkansas sent us this package. Here's some uniforms. Here's some field gear. Here's some boots. Believe me, we'll go through boots. It's the desert. I've worn boots out in less than a year, just walking in the rocks down in our southern border. If you can get folks motivated to do anything, motivate them to write, fax, and call our legislators, but then ask them, hey, can you donate some equipment? And all the information, you just send us an email, we'll tell you where to ship it. We'll even help with the shipping if we have the funds for it. We don't have a whole lot of money. We don't take donations over the internet anymore. We did that when we were trying to get the foundation formed. Once the foundation was formed, we're not taking people's money. We don't want your money. I don't want to deal with the paperwork. All I want is the ability to say, look, here's a place where you can ship and here's what it will be used for, and here's how it can do some good. Rucksacks. Send us, some Alice packs. There's got to be some National Guard armories out there where they're trying to figure out what to do with all the old equipment because they got all the new fancy stuff now. Whatever it is you've got, if you send it our way, we'll put it in the hands of those soldiers.
Yeah, but folks, I mean that doesn't exactly go for me. I have books for sale, I have videos for sale, and I got to raise money to keep the show on the air. I don't take any very few advertisers because they get arrested. Now, let me ask you, Jack. I started the Free American years ago because of the whole New World Order statements by our president. But what we're faced with is really the globalization of this country, and they're trying to eliminate state sovereignty. They're trying to eliminate the sovereignty of this country. I mean, what was this whole North American community? North America. They didn't want to call it a North American Union at first because we might equate that with the Soviet Union and the European Union. But this is a world problem. And how do we don't have any, as individuals, we don't have any ability to counter this whole world government. They've got the money, they print the money, they've got all that. But if we take back our towns, our counties, our states, we do have a shot, don't we?
Okay, I agree with you totally that it is a global agenda. But as one very good soldier, very good militiaman from Virginia, who came down and worked with us years ago, he said to me, the motto of our unit is think globally, but fight locally. Gear up, support your local militia units. Even if you're not a militiaman yourself, you still gear up to support your local militia unit or your local state guard unit after we get to that point in this state. I mean, think back to the late 1930s. The Home Guard of Finland was entirely self-supporting. They were 30 to 40% of the total military forces of Finland, and they fought the Russians to a standstill in the Winter War of 39 and 40. So if you look at how the Home Guard was organized, it's very similar to what we're proposing for the State Guard here. Home Guard soldiers had to provide their own weapons. They had to pay out of their own pocket for their own uniforms. A lot of these guys, and we're talking about Finland in the late 1930s. This was not, downtown Phoenix. This is little villages spread out all over the countryside. And what these villages would do is they would organize fundraising from the entire village to support their Home Guard soldiers. They might not be only able to outfit 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 every year, but they would have bake sales, they would have rummage sales, they would have raffles. They used every kind of fundraising mechanism you can think of. And they were able to field a force of 30,000 soldiers in Finland who were purely Home Guard soldiers by the time the Russians attacked in the winter of 39. Now, this was done at a time when mostly it was dirt roads. These villages had no telecommunications, no phones, no radio. They didn't even have running water or electricity in most of these little villages. But they were able to field a force of 30,000. Imagine what we could do today in the age of digital telecommunications, of websites, of Twitter, of Facebook. In this day and age, how much money could we raise totally outside of the scope of the federal control? And it would all go not to me, it would go not to our foundation, but it would go directly to the foundation that would be created by our state legislature. They've already done this to fund the border fence. If you go to buildtheborderfence.com, you can donate money towards that border fence right now. And they've raised over $250,000 in less than a year just to build a fence. Imagine if they did the same thing once the State Guard becomes established. They start a private foundation, and the state legislature controls those funds. I don't want your money. I want you to donate some supplies so we can start outfitting people now, but save your money for when it actually is controlled and administered by our state legislature. That's going to happen. But before anything can happen, we've got to get your voices in support of this bill being passed.
One of the problems we got in trying to get these voices is the people sitting in their little box houses on their blocks. They aren't aware of the severity of the situation. I mean, to me, I see what's developing in this country with the illegals, with now they're militarizing. I see the same thing happening to white Christian Americans that happened to the white Christian Russians when the Bolshevik Revolution, when the communists took over. Anytime communists take over a country, they go after three classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first, the intelligentsia next, and the veterans and police officers that are still loyal to the old regime.
Right. The added wrinkle, of course, is that those communist forces within our own federal government, as I mentioned before, now have competition, not just economically, but they have competition religiously, spiritually, and organizationally from Hezbollah. Hezbollah is 10 times more dangerous than Al-Qaeda ever thought they could be. Hezbollah is provided state-level security information, intelligence services from Syria and Iran, plus they're funded by Iran. They don't have to sell drugs to make money. They do that anyway, but they get their funding primarily from Iran and Syria. Do we really want the Iranian intelligence service to have control of an insurgency that's happening inside of Mexico? What happens when the drug cartels win the battles? They are moving their target list closer and closer to the Central Command Authority in Mexico. They're eventually going to take out somebody who's very, very high up that chain of command. If they haven't already, and we just haven't been told about it. But they are either inserted into or are actively trying to assassinate every major political head in the Mexican government. That's what they're trying to do. And they're being supported in that effort by training and supplies from Hezbollah. Well, if the drug cartels win this insurgency inside of Mexico, who do you suppose is really going to be controlling them? Who's going to be pulling their strings? I can see the handwriting on the wall. Hezbollah is getting in bed with the Mexican drug cartels, not so they can make money, but so that they can call the shots once the Mexican government falls. And once Hezbollah is calling the shots in Mexico, it'll make what's happening today look like the good old days.
Are you talking about Hezbollah out of Lebanon? I mean, as far as I could tell, with the organization that formed in Lebanon was formed to prevent Israel's invasion of Lebanon, and the Hezbollah was nothing more, as far as I could tell, than the people of Jordan. Now, maybe there's
not to contradict you on the air, but Clay, I believe you're talking about Hamas, not Hezbollah.
All right, what is Hezbollah? Where's that headquarters?
Hezbollah is a state-sponsored terrorist organization controlled from the mullahs in Tehran. Hamas is focused on the Palestinians. Hezbollah is focused on the globe.
Okay.
Hezbollah is a very, very dangerous, very well-resourced, and very extensively deployed operation. If you look at the tri-border region in South America, where the three countries of Paraguay, Brazil, and I forget which the third one is, that tri-border region is where most of the cocaine production comes from. And it's also where Hezbollah has established training camps where they bring Middle Easterners. They bring them over from the Middle East, they put them into one of these camps, they train them for 6 months to a year on how to look, talk, and act like a Central American or a South American or a Mexican. They learn to pass themselves off as Mexican nationals. Why do you suppose they spend that much money and that much time to get into that much of a mole role, as I like to call it. They teach these guys to become moles. They teach these Middle Easterners, because of their physical characteristics, with a little bit of work and a little bit of language training, they can pass themselves off as Mexican nationals. Why would they do that if they're not intending to send them north? What are they carrying when they bring them north? We know that Hezbollah is in bed with the Iranians. We know the Iranians are building nuclear weapons. Can anybody not see what's coming?
I don't see, frankly,
across our border with our names on it.
I am not necessarily in line with you about Iran. We got Sarah Palin, you know, a protege of Songbird McCain, you know, urging us to go to war with Iran. And I'm not convinced we needed to go to war with Iraq. With that, we're guarding the opium poppy fields in Afghanistan, and then we attack Libya, and the whole Israeli system, AIPAC, is pushing us to go to war with Iran. And I respect your opinion on this. You may have sources of information that I don't. But I see this whole New World Order as being a joint British-Israeli operation here, American operation, using us to form this one world government. My God, we send foreign aid to 150 countries, including Red China and Israel. So there's something wrong with that, Jack. And I don't know. I just don't know why we need to. I think we need to.
A whole other show on that topic.
I think we need. I think you're right.
How much time we got left?
We've got about 10 minutes. Right. No. Actually, we don't. Actually, we don't. We only got about 2 minutes left. I can keep you up on the. We've got. Right. Give out your website is.
I agree with you that we shouldn't be discussing nuclear engagements with other countries. But even though we know that we're not going to, even if we knew for a fact we're not going to go to war with Iran directly, that doesn't mean we have to ignore their proxies on our doorstep.
No, sir, we don't. We you know, as far as I'm concerned, we need to be suspicious of every country out there, Israel, Iran, or anybody else, or hell, even England. I mean, we fought them. They ran the New World Order, and the city still does. Hang on, Jack Foote's my guest today. His website is azsdf.org. And if you'll stay on with me in the chat room here and Blog TV, people have got some questions for you. And we'll stay on that air, but I got to close this one down here. Folks, go to freeamerican.com, order some books, make a donation. I can use the money, certainly can. It takes money to keep these websites up. And I don't have another occupation, folks. I've been doing this for the last 25 years, and I'm doing the same thing. That's trying to educate you.
Call recording has been completed.
Okay. I'll keep you up here, and I'm going to get rid of that one.
Okay, we're no longer live on the air?
We are live on Blog TV, and I'm still recording that.